You get 3 rolls on this dice tower. I have 8 random questions here, and whatever you roll, that's where we start.
Okay.
First roll up, right down there.
Okay. Also, I love that this is Jurassic Park themed. I'm just gonna say.
I'm always so happy when people know.
Oh, I know.
All right, number 6. So Jurassic Park is my favorite movie of all time. My second favorite movie of all time is Scream, and that's what you just rolled. I need to know, what's your favorite scary movie?
It might be Scream.
I respect all answers. That is the right answer.
Yeah. I do love Scream. It actually also was probably one of the first scary movies that I watched and was obsessed with. Yeah.
Have you seen all of them?
Of course I have.
Can I ask you to rank them?
Oh, no.
And I'll preface by saying I rank them as a fan. I like every single one of them. And I mean that wholeheartedly.
same. Oh, no. Oh,
and it's not fair because you're in this movie with me.
I know it's not fair. He's going to see this and be like...
His movies are honestly high on my list.
I will say I do really love... I don't know if I can rank them. I don't know if I can rank them.
I'll respect that.
I really don't know if I can. Also because I love Mason so much and he's so good in these movies and I don't want to upset him because I think he's phenomenal.
All right, well, I'll just end with one burning question on the Scream topic then. What is your take on Scream 3 in particular?
Oh...
People are hard on Scream 3.
They are.
And I don't get it.
I guess I don't really get it either. I think but I do, what I will say is I think there's a shift, right? There's a shift. There's a pretty big shift. And I think that's probably why, but I don't know. I love it.
I think it's so
I really don't discriminate.
Yeah, I love that movie. I think it doesn't get nearly as much credit as it deserves just because, it leans like a little more heightened and comedic than the other ones.
1,000%. I'm into it.
All right. Second roll of 3 now.
Okay.
Another 6. You get to roll
Come
again.
on. Oh, no. Don't get another 6. Don't get another 6.
I mean, appropriate for the horror genre. Number 5. Oh, so we're doing a complete shift now. This is one of my meteor acting questions. It's called favorite, least favorite.
Okay.
I want to know your single favorite part of the acting process, like finding a character, meeting your co-stars. But then also, I don't necessarily want your least favorite, but just a part of the process where you still see room to grow for yourself and you're excited to tackle it.
I would say my favorite part of the acting process is... It all starts with the character, what's on the page, and finding a way to make it my own. Because I think that's the real challenge. Anybody could play something that's written on a page. You get a character description, sometimes it tells you on the page how to say the line. Oh, she says it sarcastically. But I think the real challenge and the exciting thing for me is always what my choices are and how I choose to approach a character. I think that's the most exciting part, and her evolution. And then I think probably very similar. I feel like acting is something that is very vulnerable, and you have to step outside your comfort zone a lot of the time. And I feel like luckily I get to play these really interesting women who have a lot of very incredible qualities about them. They're also very layered. I love that the characters that I choose to play are not just one note. And I feel like there's always room for us women to grow and to learn new things about ourselves as we evolve over time, whether that's professionally or personally. And I really do fiercely believe that if I get a role and there's a characteristic about that character that I've never experienced before, I feel like that's like the real challenge. Ooh. Is to like immerse myself in that space and in that world.
What a beautiful way to put it. I feel like I experience the same thing through like the work you do. So I'm glad you're willing to like put yourself in those vulnerable places, because I don't know, that's how I learn more about myself and the world through your performances. So.
I also think it's really interesting when actors, when their character does like a hobby or does like something that they would never do in their real life, and they just like allow themselves to like send it and to just try something new. It's hard, but
it's not on the list today. I do have a dicey question for that. If you had the opportunity to learn a new skill or about a different profession through a role, what would you choose and why?
Okay, this is not it, but literally the first thing that came to my mind was soccer. Don't know why. I don't know why. No idea. That's not actually what I would say if I took a second to think about it. But probably somewhere in the world of, I feel like most of the projects that I've done, I've had to learn how to like spar and do some sort of like, I don't know, martial arts or running of some sort. So probably something like the opposite of that. Like maybe like learn like some less physical and more, and maybe like learn a new language or something like that.
I was sticking in the sports. I was going to say like golf.
Or golf.
That's the exact opposite.
Or golf.
Sparring,
That's
maybe.
so true. Or just like dad it up and go to the golfing range. Yeah.
It's very, I was about to say it's very calming, but like it's either really calming or really stressful.
Yeah.
So I don't know
Yeah.
which way you're going to go with golf.
I'll try it.
All right. In the
meantime.
meantime, I'll just start rooting for your soccer movie.
Thank you. Thank you. Why was that the first thing that came to my mind?
I love it. I grew up playing soccer. I can't really play it anymore.
I played it for like a millisecond when I was a kid. I have no memory of it. I do one more?
Yes, one more roll.
Okay.
Let's see what we're ending on.
Another 6.
But it's separated with the 5.
Okay.
So you're fine.
Okay,
You
I'm gonna
still have
trust
roll
that.
Again.
What is happening?
Number 7. Oh, this is just a nice question. I want to know something you saw recently, whether it's a movie or a TV show that inspired you. Something that, maybe inspired you as an actor or gives you hope for the future of storytelling in Hollywood.
I'm currently watching Severance, and I really do think that show is so brilliant. And everyone involved in it, from Ben Stiller to Adam Scott, I mean, everyone is so wonderful in that show. And I love the concept. I think the concept is really, really good. I also have recently been into dystopian world life. Like that to me is such an interesting topic. And if you can nail a story in that world, I'm into it.
I have to do the binge. The last person who rolled that particular question also said
said
Severance.
it?
Yeah.
Well, I didn't watch Severance when it first came out. I don't really know why. I think I was watching other things at the time and just never got around to it, which is a terrible thing for me to say as an actor. But there's so much stuff out there. There's a lot of stuff.
My whole job is watching and covering.
You gotta
things,
watch
and
it all.
I can't. There's no way. I only get to the tiniest fraction of
exactly.
it. It's my being
Exactly.
every single day.
Yeah. But I recently started watching. I finished the whole season. I'm fully caught up on where they're at right now in the second season. But it really is. It's like it feels like such a standalone show. I think that's what makes it so special.
What's up, everyone? Welcome back for a new edition of Collider Ladies Night. So excited to have Olivia Holt on the show for Hard Eyes. Told you this at the junket. Hard Eyes was just like exactly what I needed right now.
Yay.
I kept talking about horror movies functioning as comfort movies that entire junket, and it's because I put your movie in that category, and I think it's an important category of horror movie.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Good job.
Thanks.
Hey, you good?
What is the movie you saw, the performance you saw, the personal experience you had, whatever it may be, that first made you say to yourself, I absolutely have to be an actor?
I think Beaches.
I've heard that a couple times too.
Really?
I respect it.
Whoa.
I grew up watching Beaches all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's either E.T. or Beaches. They're both like two of my favorite movies of all time. Obviously, very different movies, but I have a wide range. I think the reason I think that movie in particular, I was watching a lot of movies as a kid. I didn't really watch any old school movies as a kid. I watched everything that was just coming out at that time, which I was born in the late 90s, so most of the movies that I watched growing up were in the early 2000s. And Beaches was one of the first movies that I had watched that was made before I was even born. And I just fell in love with the character. It all starts with the character, and it starts with the story as well. But I just I fell in love with their friendship. I fell in love with the way that story was told, and I think I also just loved the evolution of you see how they started as kids into their teenage life, into their young adult life, into their like it was a story. It wasn't about a particular moment in time. And I just think I fell in love with all of it. And Gary Marshall is obviously it was my dream for a very long time to work with him. And I met Bette Midler a couple years ago, sobbed. She was so wonderful. And Barbara Hershey's just such a fantastic actress and plays that role so wonderfully. But I think probably that movie. It struck a chord in me, and it's always like engraved in my body.
I totally get that. It's like one of those ones that my mom showed to me when I was young.
Me too.
And
my mom showed it to me
was
too.
Important to her, then becomes important to me. It makes that movie have an extra special place in my heart.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, so jumping ahead a little bit here, I was doing my research. Do correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, because the internet is wrong sometimes.
It do be wrong.
So you start working on commercials, and then from there you move over to Disney films and shows with Kickin It, I guess, first in particular. I know you were really young when this happened, but can you kind of recall how you bridged the gap between commercials and then starting to make shows and films?
Yeah, I had a really interesting experience with doing that because I was kind of doing what the industry is doing now, and I was putting everything on self-tape. So I was 10 years old. I came out to LA. I did a convention where I found an agent, and it's a much longer story than that, but I'm condensing it.
I am fascinated by that
very,
process.
Very, very interesting. But I found a great agent, and they told my family, you got to move out to LA. This is where all the auditions are being held. This is where you'll meet casting directors, producers, directors, whole nine yards. And they were like, no. My parents were like, we're not doing that. So they gave, the ultimatum, okay, then put things on tape. And if she gets further along, a callback, then you'll fly out to LA for a couple days, do the callback, so on and so forth. So I did that for like 2 years. I did auditions on tape. I would fly out for pilot season. I would fly out in the summer in between each school year. And I just mostly auditioned for commercials. And I think that's just kind of what you do when you start out. And I occasionally audition for, a Nickelodeon show or a Disney show here and there. Sometimes I would audition for an indie movie. It was very rare that I ever got a studio movie audition, but it was always very exciting when I did. And then after that 2-year mark, I went out for pilot season. I was 12 years old, and I auditioned for a Disney show called Kickin It. And I got it. Shot the pilot a couple weeks later for like 2 weeks. And then I went home back to Memphis, Tennessee, and I started 8th grade. And during that first semester of 8th grade is when I found out that that the show got picked up and I was going to be moving to Los Angeles to film 9 months out of the year, like a whole wild experience. But I don't know if there was like a moment in there where I was like, I'm going to shift from commercials to, I think it was all kind of happening around the same time. The only things that I was just booking were commercials.
That's one heck of an experience
Yeah,
right there.
very
I
wild.
always think every single time I meet someone who is acting at that age, like on a professional set nonetheless, I think about what I was doing at that age.
Yeah.
How did you do that?
Yeah.
That's actually the next set of questions. Again, you were very young and new to the industry when you got that opportunity. I'll tackle that from two different angles here. When you first started the show, I guess how ready did you feel? And if you didn't feel ready, is there any particular person or resource you would turn to make sure you had the information you needed in terms of what it takes to make a TV show?
I had no idea what I was doing. No idea. And my family wasn't a great help because they didn't know either. We were all just kind of winging it. And luckily we had, each other, and we have such a great relationship that it always just felt very supportive and nice to have them there with me. Obviously they had to be there with me. I was a minor, but still really nice to have them there with me. But they didn't know, and I didn't really have a lot of friends. We didn't have family there. There was no one really guiding us. There were a couple people that we would meet along the way, but ultimately, I think when I started on Kickin It was when I really kind of grasped what I was doing. And we had an actor in the show. His name is Jason Earls, and Jason Earls was previously on Hannah Montana, and he played Miley's brother. And so he is just, he's a sitcom veteran. He knows what he's doing. He's so brilliant and so funny. And he really became my mentor for 4 years. He made it feel less new. He always made it exciting, but he made it feel familiar in a way that I don't even know how he did it. But he felt like an older brother, and he just like took all of us kids like under his wings and just helped guide us. And it was the most fun time of my life. And you mentioned like what you were doing when you were 12 and all of that. I felt like I was living this double life in a real way, because we were on such an amazing hit show, but at the same time, like it never felt that way. It always felt like, oh, like I'm going to go to set and I'm going to be with like my family. Like that's always what it felt like. So there wasn't a lot of anxieties at that time. It just was what it was, and it was so much fun.
Makes me so happy to hear that was one of your very first experiences in this business.
It's all been downhill from there.
very, very much not, because actually I was going to say I'm going to save the idea of filmmaking families for our Hard Eyes conversation too, because it came up during the junket and I want to follow up on that.
Yeah.
So again, correct me if I'm wrong on any of this, but you do Kickin It for 3 seasons. Then you switch to another Disney show. And I'm always curious about the experience of having to choose between 2 good things. So at that point in your career, like what was it in your heart that said like, it is time to like move on from this and now do this type of thing?
It was a really interesting situation. Kickin It got canceled after 3 seasons. They sold our sets, they sold our costumes, they tore down everything. The soundstage was done. And at that point in my career, obviously as an actor, you're like, okay, what's next? Disney came to me with this new show called I Didn't Do It, which I did audition for, and I booked it. We started shooting the first season, and then Kickin It got renewed for a 4th season. And I was so grateful to be on this new show. And the cast was so much fun, and it was just a very different environment. Also, the show was a very different show than Kickin It. But there was one, Kickin It always brought me back as a recurring guest star for the 4th season, which I was very grateful for as well. There was one time in particular I remember. Both shows filmed on the same studio lot. And there was a day where I started on I Didn't Do It, and I wrapped probably early in the afternoon, and I ran over to the other side of the lot to film a scene for Kickin It. So, I mean, it was like the most wild time in my life, but it was so much fun.
What a beautiful thing to like have that kind of transition like layered, like one on top of the other too, where it's not like a clean break.
No, not at all. There was no clean break.
I'm kind of like happy you had that.
I feel so incredibly blessed that happened, because that's so rare that it happens that way. And I just was I was busy. There was not a second where it was slow for me. And I wouldn't have it any other way. Like, I'm so grateful for that time in my life, because now it's changed, and the industry has changed so much. But being on a sitcom was and having the experience that I did, I wouldn't change it for the world.
Oh, that's so wonderful. All right, so the next item on my roadmap is kind of moving beyond Disney. I have a big 2-part question about that, because I know a lot of people in this business, they do really well when they're young on Disney, and then they do well after, and it's fine. But sometimes you get in that situation where, like, I guess you're kind of like put in a box, and everyone's like, well, like, can you only be that kind of actor, or are you able to graduate to more adult opportunities? So I guess the 2-part question, because I need to put a positive spin on it. What is something about your Disney experiences that you think teed you up for success when you went beyond it? But then also, what is something about having started on Disney shows that made it maybe a little more difficult to get the roles you wanted after?
Okay, so first part of your question, I think the biggest thing that teed me up for everything else in my career, I learned such an insane amount about Hollywood and television making so quickly and so easily, because I was so immersed in it. And you're on set every single day with the same crew, pretty much the same cast. and you fall into a rhythm and you fall into a routine. Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, you're doing a table read, rehearsing all of the scenes. They're coming in with new notes, new dialogue, changing scenes left and right, and you have to be on it. You have to be on it. And then on Thursdays, Fridays, we film the episode. Then we get the weekend off and start again the next following week. And in between all of that, I'm doing schoolwork, which is a whole other beast we don't even have to touch. But I think it was the ability to catch on to that sort of rhythm, and it's not an easy thing to do. So you're having to learn new lines almost every other hour, and it has to be engraved in your body because you don't have all day to film, 7 different scenes. So I would say that was probably like the most rigorous thing that I could have ever done, and that definitely helped me with any other job that I have done since then. And then the second part, I think
breaking out of the box, so to speak.
I think it's sort of self-explanatory. It's very difficult because, especially when you do not only 1 but 2 shows, and I did a Disney Channel original movie in between doing those shows. There is a rainbow above your head that says Disney star, and it's really hard for people to break you out of that. And for honestly, even for myself, like I didn't know who I was. There was so much of me that was engraved in that company and in those shows and in that part of my life that when I was getting auditions for other things, I had to kind of rewire my brain in a way and learn how to be more grounded and to tone it back and to be a real human. Not that those characters weren't, but there is a level of energy that comes with being on a sitcom. And yeah, I guess make a long story short, you got to keep pushing the barriers and breaking down preconceived notions about yourself. And I think ultimately, like, I just couldn't care anymore. I think I cared so deeply about people not wanting to view me as a Disney star. And now I just embrace it. I'm like, yeah. And it was like the most fun time of my life. And I just try and push myself to choose roles and to choose projects that excite me and make me challenge myself.
You're definitely doing that.
Thanks.
From my perspective, too. I haven't asked this question in a while, but that answer was kind of making me think of it because, and like your Disney experience might actually answer this question, but I know when folks are starting out young as actors, it's mostly like going with the routine and kind of doing what you're told. So do you remember the very first time on a set when I guess you could kind of feel the power of your own voice and feel it being heard like an adult, where you were able to speak up and make a difference?
I do. I had come off both sitcoms on Disney, and I went to go do a Marvel show called Cloak and Dagger. And that show really challenged me in a lot of different ways. It was the first job I had ever done without having a parent there. It was the first job I had done outside of LA. I drove myself, did a little road trip, and drove from Los Angeles down to New Orleans. And I lived there for 5 months to film the show. So there's a lot of firsts in that world. But also, it was my first time leading an episodic. And I had never done episodic before. I'd only done a sitcom. And that when I led I Didn't Do It, it wasn't foreign territory to me. I had done a show prior to that, but this was new territory that I was stepping into. And there were multiple times where I had to show up for myself because no one else was going to. I didn't have a mom there anymore. I didn't have a set teacher there anymore. There was no one else except for me that could handle any of it. And there were multiple times where I was like, I'm not comfortable with this. I won't be doing that. And I think I was like 18 or 19 at the time, so it was all just a very big shift for me. But I loved that show so much, and I feel like everyone really respected me and took me seriously, even with how young I was. And I just really appreciated that. And it made for, I feel like it elevated our show because we all just felt so comfortable to really push ourselves. And yeah, yeah, I think that show was the first time that I ever felt that way.
Show is still quite widely beloved and highly talked about to this day. I'll get to that in a quick second, but I want to add another layer to doing that show. And, any show out there comes with a lot of pressure, but especially when you jump into a franchise like Marvel, it comes with like a significant amount of weight to it. So I guess what is the key for you between like respecting why that pressure exists, but also not caving under the pressure and still making sure like you could do what you said earlier, still make, the role your own, find what you could bring to that character.
Oh my God, there was so much pressure on me during that show, but in the best way. I do feel like Joe Pikaski, our showrunner, is so brilliantly wonderful and an amazing collaborator, and I think it really starts there, and it takes the pressure off because you do kind of get to figure it out too, instead of someone just being like, and this is how you're going to do it this way. The director of our pilot on Cloak and Dagger, her name is Gina Prince-Bythewood.
The best.
I love that woman, and she really helped me understand the gravity of being a woman on set. And she really, I don't even think she knows this. It's not something I think that she probably sought out, but I watched the way that she carried herself as a woman on set and the way she spoke to her crew and the way she treated her actors and the way she was just so collaborative and it all came from a very passionate place of she loves filmmaking. And I think I've just always taken that with me on every job that I've done since then. And it's taken the pressure off of everything, especially on a job like that, because there are so many people who, have loved a character for so much on a page and breathing life into it. You want to make people happy. You want them to be excited about something that they've loved for so long. But also you want to love it too, and you want to feel proud of it. So I really owe a lot of that to Gina Prince-Bythewood for helping me really hone in on that and be just excited about what I'm making too.
So I didn't love her enough as an artist and leader in this industry. This is a beautiful answer. So to tie that and also Cruel Summer together, I do want to touch on the experience of having shows canceled. And again, very limited perspective, so if it happened differently, do correct me. But in both cases, it does seem like you made shows that were really well received. People liked them a lot, and they went away because of how the industry was changing and how certain business things were going to impact the shows that had nothing to do with the quality of the work that you delivered. I guess, what is the key to, rolling with that kind of punch and not having a cancellation, take away how special the work you did in the show was? Because one of the things that upsets me most about cancellations and things that don't perform at the box office is the thought that something someone did and should be proud of, they can't be as proud of it because it wasn't what this industry deems successful, which sometimes makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a beautiful way of putting all of that.
Because I got very intense about it. I'm sweating now.
It's so true. I mean, I relate so much to everything that you're saying because I have been bummed for weeks and weeks and weeks over cancellations of things that I'm really proud of, and that ultimately you pour your heart and your soul into it, and when people love it so deeply as the fans who have loved the projects that I've done, for me, I think it's all in shifting the perspective, and it's really hard to do. And I think I'm still trying to train my brain to learn how to do that quicker, and it's not easy. But of course, you hope that I want to go back and say that I feel very lucky with the career path that I've been given. And I try to be very strategic about the roles that I choose. But it can also be very hard because we're in a competitive industry, and it is what it is. And there's a lot of great stuff out there that you want to be a part of. And when you get it and it gets taken away from you, it's heartbreaking. It really is. It really is the biggest bummer in the world. But ultimately, it's about the shift in perspective and to just be proud of what you did make and how you did affect the people that have watched it and have been impacted by it and love it so deeply. And then you just have to move on to the next thing.
'Tis true.
Yeah.
'Tis true. I will tell you, when I told my mom you were coming in today, she's like, you have to tell her how much I love Croissant.
Oh, that's so sweet. Oh, that's cool. I love that show.
My mom watches a lot of stuff. I feel like she very rarely makes such a firm point about me telling someone I'm interviewing about what she loves, but this was a must.
Oh, that's so awesome. Tell her thank you.
Before I teeter into hard eyes, I did want to ask you about making your Broadway debut, because that's a really, really big deal. I guess, like, how did that happen? Was that the type of acting that you were seeking out at the moment, or was it a situation where, like, the potential of taking that role crossed your path and you're like, all right, I'm going to jump at it?
Yeah, this is a really wild story, actually. I love musical theater. That's how I started acting. In my hometown, I did musical theater at my local theater. It was so much fun. And I guess I never really thought to myself that I am a Broadway performer. And if I ever did, I would always say, like, oh, like, if I do a play, maybe I'll do it, like, later on in my career, or I definitely won't do a musical, because I don't feel like I sing like like Broadway singers are like trained Broadway singers. Their technique and their muscles that they use to sing blows my mind every time I go see a show. And I guess I just never really thought to myself that's something that I would want to dabble into right now in my career. But the opportunity popped up, and I went and I met with the whole team over at Chicago. I was in New York for a couple of days, and they were talking about bringing in a younger Roxy. They're like, we want to bring in a younger Roxy and just sort of test the waters and see how that feels. Are you game? And I was like, yeah, I love this show. I'm super, super game. And they're like, okay, great. We've seen your work. We love your work. We just maybe want to do a vocal audition and a dancing audition, just so we can see if you can sing and dance the numbers. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. This is Bob Fosse. Of course, you need to understand if I can do this. So I get back to LA. I do my audition. I do it with my vocal coach, Eric Vitro, who is a phenomenal human being and really helped me, like, lock in, like, my version of Roxy and how to utilize a Broadway voice, but also incorporate the way I sing into it, which Chicago is so special for allowing you to sort of put your own spin on it. And then I went and did a dance audition with Gregory Butler, who's been with the company for years and years and years. And it went great. It went really, really great. And we put it all on tape and we sent it into the team. And I felt so good about it. I was like, this is going to be so much fun. I'm going to go to Broadway. And then they said no. And I talk about being bummed over something that you pour your heart and soul into, and like a lane of performing that you have loved so deeply since you were a kid. I was devastated. I was so, so upset. And it was one of those moments in my career where I was like, okay, I can let this one go, or I can try again and change their minds. And I did. I went in and I looked like Roxy. I did a red lip. I made my hair all pinned up. I did another vocal session and I did another dance session, but I also decided to choose 3 scenes from the show. And one is the infamous Roxy monologue. And I spent forever trying to nail that monologue, and which I still even think to this day I could find new ways to play with it, even after doing, I don't even remember how many shows I did. I think I did like 67 shows or something. But it really was like such an interesting moment in my career. And I'd never really done anything like that before. I'd never been like, oh, you said no. Well, no. Like I had a moment of, I'm going to be ballsy and I'm just going to do this and see what happens. And at least I know that I did everything I could if I don't get it. But I was very happy after I sent in that second round of tapes. They were like, oh, yes, welcome to Broadway.
I love that story so much.
Very wild.
I love that you fought for it and
Yeah.
it paid off. Oh,
Yeah, it really
instant
did.
Spot on that point.
And that company is so good and so amazing, and I just was so happy to be in their presence every single day.
Now, do you want to do more Broadway?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I sure do.
Bring it on. I always call this the manifestation table. You say what you want here, and then it happens.
I'm going back to
and
Broadway.
then I go see it. I lie. One more question before I get to Hard Eyes, because I'm a big Michael Fimignari fan. I love everything he directs. I love seeing everything that he's the cinematographer on. So I want to ask one question about Jingle Bell Heist, because on top of him, I also love Christmas movies. What would you say it is about that movie, that story, that will kind of scratch an itch in a new way for anyone out there who really likes Christmas movies that like no other Christmas movie does?
Yeah, well, I'm really excited for everyone to see this movie. It's going to be so much fun to watch. Obviously, everyone, enjoys a nice Christmas movie, but it's so much more than that. It's going to be an adventure and a love story, and it's all compiled into this, like, incredible film that Michael has created. He directed and DP'd this movie, so it looks flawless. And I retweet to everything that you said. He's brilliant, and his vision is so good. And I'm such a fan of everything that he does. So I was very, very, very grateful to work with him. Yeah.
Good pitch. I'm even more hyped than I was before.
I think you'll really like it. I think you'll really like it.
I have a feeling. Like, in him I trust, and I also can already tell, like, your instincts in terms of what projects you're choosing right now.
Thank you.
Probably going to spark with me. So
Thank
I'm
you.
looking out for that one. Just like Hard Eyes did. Oh my, where to even begin? Actually, I want to go back to what you said at the very, very beginning when we were playing Dicey Questions about how important it is to you to be able to kind of like find space to bring your own voice to these characters. So you get a great script, but what is something that you thought would make this role uniquely yours?
Well, I think it starts with the story, which I've said. And I also think it starts with the characters, where they're at and how they get to where they go and then where they end up. And Allie's arc through the whole story it's so much fun. It's so much fun to watch. And it's like she's one of those characters that I've always kind of said when I first read the script and I read the description of Allie and also just sort of understood like her trajectory through the whole journey. She is giving Sally, Meg Ryan's character, and When Harry Met Sally, like so much. And I really leaned into that. I kind of like her neurotic energy. And I also really love that she's so passionate and so opinionated. She also puts a lot of pressure on herself to be at a certain place in her life and in her career and in her love life as well. Like, I think she has this pressure umbrella like over her all of the time. And I really like that Jay comes in and offers her perspective and that she doesn't immediately take it yet, that she still has her boundaries, which I like. But I love the way that she chooses to open up and she chooses to learn something new about herself. And she's also incredibly badass. She's in more shape than I am. I mean, I don't know how I did that much running in that movie, but I really do love that character, and I hope I get a chance to play her again.
And are just so perfect together. So, I still can't get over that. I said it to you at the junket. I feel like the success of this movie hinges on like your chemistry together, and from both of you, your ability to kind of play into the comedic nature of it all, but by doing that without ever taking away from like the stakes and the grounded quality and the fact that I still believe that they were real people. And to be able to put all that together is kind of a magical accomplishment. And you have one of the very best at the helm who has a habit of doing things like that in Josh. So can you tell me a little bit about him as an actor's director, maybe something about the way he operates that you really appreciated and would be excited for even more actors to get to experience when they work with him on his future films?
I mean, Josh is really a huge reason why I wanted to make this movie, because after I read the script, I met with him over Zoom, and I'm such an energy person. I love sitting across from somebody and getting to know them. And so I was like, oh, okay, another Zoom. We're going to try and like feel out whatever vibe is potentially there. And like the second that Josh started speaking, I was like, oh, I think I'm obsessed with this guy. He's so smart and he has such an incredible vision and he's so collaborative. And him and I very much connected on our feelings about Allie and her trajectory and the way she feels about Jay and the way she feels about love and life. And while she's no love and life guru, I think that Josh did a really incredible job at helping me understand just how important it is to feel strong-willed as like a woman and in her career path that she's chosen as well. And he like allowed like a space for us to like play and also to just communicate. I think that that's a really important thing as an actor's director. He's just so good at that. And he just made every day on set so much fun. And even on the days that were really challenging, whether it was technical or whether it was dialogue, like whatever the challenge was, he was like, we're going to get through this together and we're going to make the most of it. There were very few days where I saw him stressed because he just like he created such a safe and special environment for everybody. It was everybody's home away from home. And I think that's what everyone is feeling when we're all together and we all talk about each other, because a lot of people don't realize that actors normally are away from their friends and their family for weeks and months at a time making movies or shows, and you kind of hope that you bond with your cast and your crew. And it was almost instant that all of us bonded together. And I think we all feel very, very grateful for that.
I'll split this idea up into 2 questions. One will be non-spoiler, and after that I'll put the spoiler warning up.
Cool.
Do you remember the very first time, either in prep or when shooting had started, where you kind of looked around at everybody around you and basically felt that, like, oh, we are a filmmaking family. I'm with the right people for this, like both in front of and behind the lens?
It was very early on. And we were there for about a week doing prep, doing stunt rehearsals, hair and makeup tests, costume fittings before we actually got on set with the entire crew. But I would say like week 2 or 3, we all fell into such a nice rhythm. And there were multiple moments where I looked around and I was like, I love these guys so much. Like everyone is so good at their job. They're so efficient. They're so passionate about really making a great movie. And the experience in itself was just, it's one of the most memorable experiences that I've had in a very long time. And I think I really do believe that translates onto screen, because I feel like people are seeing this movie and they're feeling that.
I say that all the time, and I very much believe that. I know every single set can't be a filmmaking family. Everyone can't be best friends, but there is something about having that real, genuine connection and feeling safe and supported and loved every step of the way that I do think radiates off screen in the finished product.
I think so, too.
All right. Without further ado, I'm going to put up the spoiler warning. If you have not seen Hard Eyes, here is where you pause the video, you run out to the theater and you see it, and then you come back and push play, and the conversation starts again right here. All right. With that, I want to build on that particular idea, but obviously let you talk about it freely. Can you name something challenging that you were able to pull off on Hard Eyes that you know you were only able to do because you had those right people around you?
A lot of the stunt work. I think a lot of the stunt work, and there was so much of it. I would say probably our ending finale, the big finale scene, was probably the most challenging to film. It took about a week, and there were a lot of challenges, a lot of obstacles. We were filming on a soundstage, but they had built this church on the soundstage, and there were I think we did a game where we guessed how many candles were lit in that church, and I don't remember, but it was definitely hundreds and hundreds of candles that were lit.
Stunning.
It's so cinematically beautiful, but there were so many moving parts to that scene. I mean, you have Jordana and I fighting on one end of the church.
So I cannot believe what she did in that final set piece.
I can't either. I still cringe. I mean, I was there for her death, and I I couldn't even believe what I was looking at. And then when I saw the first cut where they've like added, like the sound effects and all of the effects just all around, I was gripping on to the side of my seat, just like I was like, I can't watch this. It's so brutal. It's so brutal, but it's so good. Mm-hmm. And you really don't know, like in the moment, when you're making it, you're like, oh yeah, this is gonna be sick. But you really don't know how things are gonna turn out when like you put it in like the final edit and like how it's gonna be executed. I mean, everyone did such a fantastic job.
It's a great killer reveal.
It is a great killer reveal. I feel
like usually I'm pretty good at figuring certain things out, and that was just like one holy shit, like what the fuck reveal after the next.
Yeah.
When you were reading this script for the very first time, did you have like any inkling that it could like be her +2?
No, absolutely not. I think I had like a little inkling. I was like, okay, Hobbs and Shaw, like, are they just like our sweet little like, are they?
Poor Devin.
I know. Oh my God. What a way to go.
He seems like he's having so much fun doing that kind of stuff, though.
He is, and he's such a great sport about it. But he also, it's so funny, like I had very few scenes with Devin, but the scenes that I did have, he really he gets into it. He gets into character, and it's so fun to watch him do it. But I mean, everyone, like Jordana too. Jordana, during all of our stunt rehearsals for our finale fight sequence, she was so locked in and she was so into it. And we had a couple hiccups here and there, but I mean, she crushed it.
To break down that big finish a little more, of everything you had to do, whether it was stunt-based or something emotional, which specific part of it did you think was going to be the most challenging for you to pull off? And then ultimately, was that the toughest, or did something else catch you by surprise?
I would say there were a lot of incredible shot compositions that Josh came up with that I think, like I would say the scene in the van, which I think the trickiest part of that is we did that in so many parts. And the scene in the van when the kill happens, when her face goes down and she has a hole in her face, I would say that was probably the trickiest because there were so many precise angles and movements that we had to do in order for the shot to work. And it was also like 3 a.m. and it was probably negative something degrees outside and we had blood all over us and, but that probably was definitely one of the hardest things to do.
Understandable.
Yeah.
I just love horror movie magic so much.
Oh, yeah.
I can't get enough of it.
I also was just so impressed by everybody's ability to like lean into something that was really challenging. And a lot of the challenges came when we were doing everything in the church. Mm-hmm. And the church set was always a hot set. And so everyone had to be like very careful about everything that they did. And that week was also really challenging, but everyone was just so lax, so collaborative, so kind, like gave people like the space and time that they needed. And it looks so good. So I'm so happy that we were allowed to have that space and it all felt safe.
Every set should have those vibes.
Every set should have those vibes.
One.
I agree.
All right, I have to let you go. So we have hit the final question of Ladies' Night. Every single Ladies' Night ends with this particular question. I will warn you, people don't like it, but I don't care because I think it's an important thing to think about. Okay. In film and television, we give each other awards. That is great. I do think we should keep doing that. But I find that nobody tells themselves good job as much as they should. So I want to know something you accomplished while making Hard Eyes that you'll always be able to look back on and say, you know what, I am really proud of what I did there.
I think I would have to say I'm really proud of the energy that it took to really execute a great movie, the energy that it took. I think I'm really proud of that. I don't know if there's one specific moment, and I want to give you one specific moment.
It doesn't have to be a moment. It
every single day, it was like doing cartwheels going to set because it was so much fun. But I'm really proud that I showed up on set every single day and allowed myself to leave everything that I had going on else in my life at the door and to just give myself to this job. And to really put in is the best energy I possibly could.
That is definitely something to be proud of.
Thank you.
And all that energy paid off big time. I adore your movie. I'm going to wind up watching it over and over and over.
Before we go, I have a gift I want to give you.
Oh.
Can I give you a gift?
Yes, please.
Can I?
Yeah, you can. I think you can.
Okay.
I've heard something about this might be questionable.
It might be, but it is.
Okay.
It's a little fun thing, and if you've seen the movie, you don't have. No, you don't have to. It's not like a special card or anything.
All right, let's see.
If you've seen the movie, you'll know, and if you haven't, then go see the movie and you'll find out.
All right. Oh boy. Stay single, stay safe. I can't wait to see what this is. Oh no! I will happily open this on Collider Ladies Night. Wow.
Yeah.
Nobody even knows yet. Nobody knows. I know. I can't believe this.
It's so insane. It's insane.
People are going to lose their minds. They're going to lose their minds in the single and the close-up. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Now I have to add to my outro. I'm going to say thank you for this one-of-a-kind gift that I've never in my life received from a film.
Oh, very good.
Congratulations on everything you've accomplished, on Hard Eyes and everything coming your way in the future.
Thank you.
Come back to Ladies Night more. I could have talked to you for hours.
I loved this. Thank you so much.
This is amazing.
Insane.